If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
Well, it happened. This is not a drill, and this is not a dry run. As of this morning, the United States and Israel have launched full kinetic combat operations against Iran, dubbed Operation Epic Fury by the Pentagon. We're in a declared state of major combat operations with the Islamic Republic of Iran right now. Today is February 28th, 2026. Here's what that means for you and your family on American soil. Before today's strikes, Iran explicitly threatened to activate Hezbollah sleeper cells inside the United States if we attacked. Well, we've now attacked. The FBI is now on elevated domestic terror alert. The trigger condition Iran has set has been met. Convicted Hezbollah operative Ali Karani told the FBI in federal court that his cell would be activated, and I quote, in the event that the United States and Iran went to war. We're now in that scenario. This is the moment we've been warning you about. The X-posts are flying. The intel is breaking by the minute. And we're going to walk you through all of it live right now. So moving into segment number one, what happened? The kinetic strike package. At 2:30 a.m. Eastern time, Trump posted an 8-minute True Social video, white USA hat, Mar-a-Lago, confirming a major combat operation. His words, for 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America. We're not going to put up with it any longer. The Pentagon is calling this Operation Epic Fury. Israel is calling it Operation Roaring Lion. Strike cities confirmed Tehran, Isfahan, Qom, Karaj, and Kermanshah, with nationwide strikes reported across Iran. 200 Israeli fighter jets hit over 500 Iranian military targets in the first wave alone. Both the USS Gerald R. Ford and the USS Abraham Lincoln carrier strike groups were pre-positioned and executed. Khamenei's compound was targeted. His whereabouts and condition are unknown as of right now. Iran's president, boy, this one's a handful here, Pezeshkian, I'll get Khalid in a second to correct my pronunciation on that one, was also targeted. Both claimed to be safe via state media, unverified. Iran is in the near total internet blackout. Net blocks confirm national connectivity at 4% of normal. 14,000 plus international flights have been disrupted. Lufthansa, Virgin Atlantic, Etihad, Air India, all suspended service. So I'm going to bring our panel on stage here. We've got my good friend Khalid Muhammad from Command 11 in Pakistan, and JJ Carroll is back with us once again, 24-year CBP special agent and current ICE officer as well. I was going to say, gentlemen, good to see both of you, but Khalid's kind of on some undercover ops, so good to hear you again, Khalid. Khalid, I got to come to you with the first question. Is this a limited strike or a full regime change operation? And does the scope of Epic Fury tell us which one Trump actually chose?
What before the attack started in Iran, everyone was saying this was going to be a limited strike to put pressure on Iran to accept the U.S. terms for a deal of some kind. But when Israel hit 30 targets in Iran this morning, that kind of made it clear this was not a limited strike. This was a decapitation strike. You have successfully hit 3 IRGC headquarters. You have taken out one of the senior commanders of the IRGC. 3 members of the senior command and control structure of the IRGC and the Mullah regime are still safe and sound for now. But I don't expect that to continue because the number of intelligence assets you have inside of Iran working with the United States, whether they be Irani or foreign, are going to reveal where they're in hiding, and you're going to end up getting them as well. The intent behind this is regime change, because if you remember Trump's 8-minute speech this morning, he said, we are going to take out the IRGC, and then he extolled the Irani people that this is the opportunity you've been waiting for. Take your government by yourselves now, because the U.S. cannot take the government for you. They cannot take the government for you. Even if the U.S. comes in and says, okay, we're going to take over the Irani government, they cannot rule Iran. It will not work. The people of Iran need to stand up and take Iran for themselves, because it's not something the foreign power can do for you. They can only open the door for the people to take control.
Yeah, that's very, very well said, Khalid. So, JJ, coming to you for the next one, by the way, thank you for joining us on your day off. Appreciate it. So, with Khomeini's whereabouts unknown and IRGC and potentially being decapitated right now, who do you think controls the sleeper cells here in America, JJ? And does the decentralization of these sleeper cells make the domestic threat even harder to stop?
Well, I think the bigger question is, are the sleeper cells here going to feel as if they have to do something, right? I would think that has to become a bigger question. And just so your audience knows, the United States government knowingly allowed in over 250,000 special interest aliens into America. Just let them walk in. Those are terrorists. And they can say all they want, like the Biden administration said, well, we caught 141. What are you, on drugs? The enemy is here in America. So just like the Mexican cartels that we were talking about last night, the idea that they're going to come and do damage is a fallacy. They're here. Just like these terrorist groups are here right now as we speak. Who's going to tell them to go? Or maybe they have a kill switch, where meaning any time that they're attacked, they have a set protocol of what to do. And I'm sure that's on the mind of everyone in DHS and the president right now.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Before I go back to Cleve with another question, JJ, tell me about when you left CBP under the Biden installation and the phone calls that you received from men who used to report into you before you retired with regards to having known terrorists and special interest aliens in their custody, and the fact that they were being told to let them go and calling you and asking you for direction on that.
Yeah, well, in one particular station in San Diego sector, which is Imperial Beach Station, where I worked for over a decade, go to the southwesternmost corner of the United States and go in 6 miles. That is my AOR at that time. The cartels decided that this is where all the Middle Eastern and continent of Africa people were going to cross the border. And my buddies were sending me pictures of over 1,500 people a day were sitting, all males, all single adult military age male, and showing me pictures and videos of them. And they told me they were bringing in 500 a day to process. Out of those 500, 50 of them, at least 50 of them, were redlining, and we call it red bar, and they were being hit as special interest aliens. 5 of them a day would be determined to be on the terrorist watch list, and the other 45 would be released into America. Released. And then my buddy said, don't even worry about that, JJ. And I was like, what do you mean don't worry about that? He go, no. You have to understand, the other 450 people that we're releasing, I'm looking at them. All of them could be terrorists. So I want your audience to understand, 200,000 plus to 250,000 plus known special interest aliens were released into America. You could take that number and go by 10 times that for the number of terrorists that came into America during those 4 years of Biden. 60 to 70% of everyone that crossed the border in 4 years under Joe Biden were single adult military men. What do you think is going to happen to America?
One last point, JJ, I'd like you to make for the audience. What happened to the suicide rate for CBP agents during the 4-year Biden installation?
Well, that was an epidemic, just like there's an epidemic in suicides throughout law enforcement, because our society has demonized all law enforcement. We've become the bad guys. You've defunded us. You've cut our hours. You've done everything. You never backfilled our partners that retired. we are now looking at a absolute deficit in law enforcement officers right now, and when we need them the most.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but you're 100% on the money there. Clee, coming back to you, Iran retaliated within hours and hit 4 of our base locations simultaneously. Is Tehran holding back, or is this the opening salvo of something much larger, or is that all they've got to bring to the table and it's all just been a bunch of bluster?
Chris, I had a lot of signal break. I'm gonna bounce out and then bounce back in again and see if I can pick up the sound again.
Okay, no problem. I'll go to JJ with the next question then. So JJ, the trigger condition that Iran set for sleeper cell activation has now been met, which basically was if we attack Iran, they would activate their sleeper cells. I want to make one point clear for our audience. The ISIS Al-Qaeda sleeper cells are not related to the Iranian sleeper cells, which are Hezbollah primarily, Hamas as well, Houthis, but Hezbollah being the big one. But now that that's been met, what does the threat picture look like on American soil in the next 72 hours, JJ?
I think the threat scenario has to be heightened all the way to past red. Like, everyone needs to be on high alert. This is an international war. And now I'm really curious just to see how it all plays out. Meaning, is Russia and China going to see, all right, this is an opening? We're starting to see all the Middle Eastern countries galvanize around Trump. So we're going to see. But my contention always been, you've released all of the enemy into our country. The enemy's here. It's just, are they going to activate? And that's a scary thought, because if you have 1, 5, 25 different scenarios happening across America, America will shut down. It will just shut down, because there's nobody is going to come and help you. It has to be yourself and your family and your immediate friend circle.
Yeah, amen to that. So let me get Khalid back up here with us. And by the way, I'm now reminded why we stopped broadcasting on Saturdays, because the trolls come out of the woodwork. I've already had to boot several people from the 9 platforms that we're sending this out to. So coming back to the question I had before for you, Khalid, with Khamenei's whereabouts unknown and IRGC, or sorry, that one went to JJ. My apologies. Let me find the right spot again. There we go. So Iran retaliated within hours. Khalid, they hit 4 of our bases simultaneously. Is Tehran holding back, or is this the opening salvo of something much larger, or has all of this just been bluster on the part of the Iranians?
No, I think well, here's what the problem was. When the US was planning the attack on Iran issued an open statement to the entire Arab world and said, anyone who participates in this attack, we will strike you. We will come after you first. What we saw today is that as soon as the US and Israel carried out their strikes on Iran, Iran went after US bases in the Middle East first. From there, they jumped and said, okay, now let's start rolling forward. And Iran made a very, the Ayatollah made a very interesting statement during his speech this evening to the Iranian people, that what you've seen so far is all of our old stock of weapons. What will happen tomorrow if the US and Israel continue with their onslaught? What will happen tomorrow is we will open up a different playbook. We will show America and Europe and the rest of the world what Iran is actually capable of. Now, I'm going to preface that statement with helping everyone understand that Iran has also been supplied with some very heavy weaponry by the Russians and by the Chinese as well in preparation for this attack. That weaponry is now going to come into play. Add to that the question you asked JJ about Hezbollah sleeper cells in the US. There has already been a very quiet message sent across to sleeper cell commanders that prepare to attack. So Iran is not playing from the old card deck right now. They're playing from a very new deck. And they're saying that if the US wants to escalate, if Israel wants to escalate, we are going to push the limits, even if it means Iran being wiped off the map. We will get our revenge. And this is something that's very Persian about them. The Persian people themselves will fight to the absolute death, but they will never forget what is done to them. And when they get the opportunity to deliver the kind of damage they potentially can, they will do it in every way they possibly can. The next 4 days are very crucial for what Israel and the US does, because you need to cripple both Hezbollah in the United States, Hezbollah inside of Canada, the cartels in Mexico, and the Iranian regime inside of Iran. Otherwise, this could escalate very quickly.
Wow, that's a scary picture that you point there, Khalid. JJ, back to you. So diplomacy was reportedly progressing as recently as Thursday in Geneva. Why do you reckon Trump pulled the trigger now? And do you think this was always the plan, regardless of what happened in the talks, and that was just for show?
It seems like it was always in the plan. I heard some reports where they said President Trump is going to give them 7-8 days. And they said, don't be surprised about day 3, 4, or 5. He just pulls the trigger, because that seems to be his MO on these type of things. And I believe, as a lot of people believe, Israel's wagging the dog. Israel is. So once again, Americans are now finding themselves in another war in the Middle East. I have a son that's 14. In 4 years, selective service mandates him to sign up for the draft, which he will. My son's not going to war. My son's not going to war for any other nation except the United States of America. And I feel, and I'm very excited to be on your show today because I want to hear what Khalid has to say. My feeling is we are now entering into the 3rd decade of Middle Eastern war because we're following Israel. And I don't understand it. I truly don't understand it, except we have a Zionist block of Christianity that absolutely believes these are God's people and we have to follow them. And I'm not a subscriber to that.
Well, let's open it up then. And sorry, let me get you all back on stage here. All right, there we go. Let's go down that rabbit hole a little bit before we go into the second segment. Khalid, your comments on what JJ just said?
Yeah, I'm glad JJ opened the door and I didn't, because if I had said something like that, then I'd be branded as the Jew-hating Muslim.
You are.
It's not about. Thanks, JJ.
Hey, I just need you to take some heat off of me. Right? I'm the angry racist white guy from the South.
No, but see, JJ, you're dead on with this. I mean, if you look at Iraq was invaded because Netanyahu kept saying over and over, if you take out Iraq, if you take out Libya, the Middle East will see peace. You've taken out Iraq, you've taken out Libya, and the Middle East has not seen peace. Now it's Iran. Now we take out Iran and we destabilize Iran, and are we going to see peace again? You're not. The problem that we have in the Middle East is not that you need to take out countries. It's that you need to end the monarchies. You have almost 15 monarchies that are operating inside the Middle East that are absorbing all of the national wealth that comes in. And they will do whatever they need to do to protect their monarchy. They are not worried about the people. Saudi Arabia has been bombed today. Qatar has been bombed today. Kuwait has been bombed today. Oman has been bombed today. Jordan has been bombed today. These are all monarchies. The fact that you continue to support a monarchy in the Middle East and at the same time say democracy, democracy, democracy is not going to end the problem. And as long as you continue to follow the direction of the Zionist bloc inside the Republican and Democratic parties, saying that the only way to find salvation is defending Jerusalem, that's not going to find you salvation. It's going to find you more wars. And 30 years of war should have taught America by now that you're not going to win this way. There are other ways to getting around this problem. It's not by fighting everywhere. You fought in Afghanistan for 20 years. You fought in Iraq for 10 years. You fought in Libya. Now you're fighting in Iran. How many countries are you going to go after because someone else has to go after them?
Yeah, and that someone else is connected to all these countries. When do we wake up and say, hold on? It's like when I was a supervisor in the Border Patrol and a manager, and I would have one supervisor that had issues with 10 different people, and those 10 different people did not know of these separate incidences. So I had to look at it rationally and go, wait a minute, I don't have 10 problems. I have one problem. I have one manager, one supervisor that is causing all this angst. So I have to either correct him or get rid of him. Same thing here. Why is all of these countries horrible and Israel's right? Just like the Hebrew Hammer fine from the congressman from Florida stated, he's Jewish, said, we is amazing how he says we the Jewish people have been kicked out of 109 different nations, and not one time was it our fault. You just got to throw your hands up and say, dear God, when are you going to do some introspective and look at what you people have done to the world? And when's enough going to be enough? Honestly, how much we're at $9 to $10 trillion in the Middle East right now, the last 30 years. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers have been maimed, killed, psychologically destroyed. Millions of family members have been their lives completely upside down. For what? Can you explain? Give me one reason why we did 30 years of war, and then give me one thing that we got out of this war. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Well, I mean, I'd say we lost a lot. We didn't get anything, but we certainly lost a lot. Don't disagree with that. Let's just touch on a couple quick things. Number one, JJ, a comment from LAPD SWAT, by the way. Thank you for the tip. Do you think the large city police department SWAT teams are on heightened alert? Will law enforcement get access to critical intel? We've seen a pretty big breakdown in the fusion centers. Maybe touch on that and what your thoughts are, JJ, being a law enforcement officer yourself.
Well, intel's only as good as it has to be specific, right? A lot of it's very general, like be on the alert. Okay, well, I'm on the alert every day. I put my gun belt on and my vest on, and I drive out of the office or the station. So the idea that, the intel needs to be very specific. Hey, at the cross street of 18th and Main in this building, we believe there's a terrorist cell in there. Keep an eye out on that area, and then we're going to hit it. Okay, SWAT goes in. We don't have that. We have, hey, heightened alert. We're at red now. We're at past red, whatever that color is. We're okay. That's great. But you guys have been crying wolf for decades because you keep going in there and bombing the crap out of the Muslim nations. It makes no sense. And you and I Jeff talked about this last night, is comms and the sharing information. We've gotten a lot better in law enforcement, federal, state, but there's still bottlenecks. There's still people holding stuff because they can't let it out. That's the trick box we're always in. Oh, we can't let it out because it'll reveal our sources, or it will reveal what we're going to do. Well, then what's the point of having intel if you're not going to share it? We're going to wait till it blows up, whatever that is, and then go in and do after action reports. I always love those. Well, what failed? Well, everything failed because we don't have enough agents. We don't have enough police officers. Let's say you're in Nevada, in Vegas, and let's say one or two bombs blow up. That's your entire one bomb. That's your entire law enforcement apparatus is going to focus on that, Chris. And now another one goes off in Laughlin. Then another one goes off in Hendersonville. We're going to be chasing our tails. And that's the thing I want your show really focuses on being prepared and being ready for the inevitable. What's going to happen? You have to be prepared because there's not enough of me, law enforcement guys, to come help you. That's just the truth. Over 600,000 law enforcement officers for 350 million U.S. citizens and another 100 million foreign nationals. Do the math.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, Khalid, back to you. I see some people commenting in the live chat with regards to the Ayatollah saying, they're pretty sure he's dead, but that doesn't sound like that's actually the case. Fill us in on that part, Khalid. Khalid, can you hear us? Khalid.
Yeah. Look, we have no confirmed reports that the Ayatollah is dead. If that were to happen, it would be broadcast over every single news channel across the planet. So social media saying that the Ayatollah is dead, or one news channel saying the Ayatollah is dead, is not confirmation for us. Again, coming from an intelligence background, trusting people to say when they say something is, you require 2 to 3 different sources to get to verify that. And a lot of people are now giving you a lot of wishful thinking. We've gotten so and so, we've gotten so and so, we've gotten so and so, we've gotten so and so. You don't have any proof of that. And as long as there's not proof, you don't have a confirmation. You cannot openly say it. It's like when Pakistan started bombing Afghanistan just 2 days ago. We said we got the Taliban leader. It was all over social media that we got the leader of the Taliban. A lot of people stepped back, said, wait a minute, hold on. Where's the proof? If we got the leader, the Taliban would issue that statement saying that they took out our leader and the war would change. Iran, and I'm going to guarantee this for you, if you got the Ayatollah, Iran would throw everything they have at you. They would throw everything they have at you because you got the Ayatollah. The fact that they have not thrown everything they have yet is because they still have the Ayatollah hidden away someplace. He's secure, and I don't think he's going to stay secure. I'm going to repeat that again. I said this before we went on air as well, Chris. I don't think the Ayatollah is going to stay secure. Someone is going to sell him out. Someone is going to sell him out. That is a guaranteed fact because the Iranis themselves are tired of the mullah regime. But what is the other option for them? They're not willing to accept the Shah's son to come back and rule Iran. That's not an option for them. The IRGC is not an option for them. So they're also weighing their options. That if the mullah regime goes, what comes in place? Who takes over next? And do things get better for us or do they get worse for us? Right now, buying a loaf of bread in Iran will cost you somewhere around 400,000 lira, Irani lira. That is more than what most people make in a month to buy a loaf of bread. That's how bad the economy in Iran is right now. Wow. Everyone is tired of the mullah regime, but what is the other option for them?
Wow. Yeah, great question. So, JJ, if you have time, I want to just kick off segment 2, ask you a question before you leave.
Absolutely.
I think it's time for you to get going to the basketball game. So let me go ahead and open up segment number 2. So Iran's retaliation. So Iran retaliated fast, launching ballistic missiles and drones at Israel and U.S. bases simultaneously across the Gulf. Confirmed targets hit Al Udeid in Qatar, Al Salem in Kuwait, Al Dafara in UAE, who, by the way, just minutes ago formally declared war on Iran, and the U.S. Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. Erbil Airport in northern Iraq was drone targeted, but they were intercepted. Riyadh, Saudi Arabia hit, missiles intercepted. Northern Israel, air raid sirens, active explosions, IDF intercepting incoming fire as we speak. In Dubai, a prominent hotel was struck by shrapnel. One person killed in Abu Dhabi from intercepted missile debris. The IRGC declared all American and Israeli assets in the Middle East are now legitimate targets, no red lines. Qatar, Kuwait, UAE, Bahrain, and Iraq all closed airspace. Hezbollah issued a declaration calling on Middle Eastern nations to unite against the U.S. and Israel. Oman's foreign minister, who was mediating talks just 48 hours ago, expressed dismay and urged Washington to stand down. So, JJ, last question before you have to jet. Iran declared no red lines remain after this. What does that language tell us about how far Tehran is willing to escalate from here, especially here in the home front?
Well, if you're the leaders in that country, you've had to watch all the people in the Middle East have to bend the knee to the Americans or they get killed. So why wouldn't you, especially if you feel if you're righteous, right? Why would you go down without letting everything go? Like everything. So I think once you get someone, and I don't think Iran has a nuclear weapon, but then who are we supposed to believe? Matt Walsh just posted something that was really brilliant. He said, wait a minute, the reason why we're going to war is because the Iranians have the ability to make nuclear weapons. I thought 6 months ago we bombed them into caveman status. So did you lie to us then, or are you lying to us now? And then ultimately, one of the greatest things, I mean, the biggest things that Trump is saying, President Trump is saying that this is going to liberate the people of Iran. Liberating the people of Iran is not my effing problem, man. And you're going to tell me one of our soldiers is going to die, which Donald Trump said will happen, will have casualties, to free Iranians? Dear God, what has happened to our president? What has happened to America first? And then when things start banging off here, and you have to expect it's going to, right, Chris? And do you think I'm off, or Khalid, do you think I'm off by saying that there has to be cells here just waiting for the call or waiting for a trigger to happen? Am I off base in thinking that?
Well, no.
Not at
So,
all.
so
Not at
between
all.
Jeff MD and Don Mann, both CIA case officers for many years, Don was a Navy SEAL prior to that as well, have both reported that in the early 1990s, when they were active CIA case officers, they were already tracking 300 Hezbollah terror cells in America. Some of those cells had multiple members. It wasn't just individuals. That number is probably exponentially greater now since the Biden installation threw our southern border wide open. Plus, Hezbollah has been joined at the hip with the cartels, including the Venezuelans, for the same amount of time. They look like the Latino cartel and gang members. They talk like them. They have the same accent. You know, you've caught them at the border, and they're virtually indistinguishable, right?
Well, they're indistinguishable, and then you begin to look at. Look, I'm walking around my towns and cities here in the Midwest. Is it America? Honestly, I ask myself that sometimes. Am I in America? We have a humongous population of Indian nationals because the H-1B. We have the number 10th largest Somali community. I mean, so there are times once I get out of quote in my white enclave, I come out and go, what is this? Is not America. What happened to my America? It's like if I went to Iran and all I saw were white people walking around, I would say, am I in Iran? Where the hell am I? Right? Demographics have a meaning. It's needed. Why does the Japanese want to maintain Japan? Why does Germans and Iranians, and on and on and on? Because there's culture tied to our demographics. We've allowed the world to come into America, and we have watered down citizenship to mean nothing. We have destroyed our demographics. We have culturally destroyed ourselves and societally destroyed ourselves. And now, because of our open border policy for decades for both parties, we have the enemy living in America. And no one is going to convince me, no matter how much quote evidence you try to, or your feelings or your beliefs. I lived it, Chris. I saw this happening for 24 years. And I saw it the last year of my career, Joe Biden's first year, and all the way to the end. He allowed, through Mayorkas and all the anti-American scum, allowed 30 million people come into America. And I'm telling you, I saw the videos. I talked to the people. I went down to the border after I retired, and I was shocked because everybody I saw was a single adult military-aged man, and they were dark as night from sub-Saharan Africa and the Muslim countries, and India, and I could not believe it. I could not believe what I was literally standing in the middle of, hundreds of them, and they all represent millions. I want your audience to understand, we're not talking about 100,000, which is almost hard to imagine, 100,000 terrorists. I want you to think of millions. That's what's happened to America right now, and we are in imminent danger. I believe that, and I pray that I'm wrong, but I know I'm not.
Yeah, so I'll let you go on this, Jason. My good friend, or JJ, my good friend Jason Wilson, who's a very high-level political operative, he started his consultancy in 2015. He spent about $5 million of his own money on his data set. Tens of millions have been spent by candidates that he's helped get elected into office, and good guys, like Andrew Bailey, the former AG of Missouri, who, mark my words, will either replace Kash Patel or Bondi here imminently. 2 years ago, he was pulling some data out of this, JJ, like, and we're talking, when you say big data, like, this is big data, right? Data from a gazillion sources. Number one comment made in his entire data set 2 years ago: I no longer recognize my country.
I don't. I honestly don't. And I'm not talking about, hey, I want it to be 100% white and all. No. That's the racist comment that people want to. No, my country was founded by white European Christians. Why did we allow it to go to every other religion and faith? We don't share anything anymore. America is not an idea. That bullshit lie is just that, a lie. America is a geographical location that is founded on white Christian principles of Christianity and togetherness and common language, common God, Jesus Christ. And if you don't like that and you don't want to come into it, then get the hell out. But what did we do? We said, everyone come in and we're going to morph into something that's not recognizable by our own citizens. And that's and we have a right to maintain our society the way that we believe that it should be, not bring in tens of millions, not a few millions. 50 to 90 million now is the number, Chris, they're saying, of illegal immigrants. 50 to 90 million. I hate to tell your audience this, unless there is a massive revolution. I mean, massive revolution. Our country's dead. It's dead on the vine, and everyone knows it because our birth rates are below 1.6. That's death.
0 instances in recorded history of 2 or more diametrically opposed cultures peacefully coexisting in the same geography. This is not going to end well. We're not advocating violence, but it's not going to end well. But I got to tell you, Khalid, mission accomplished. We got JJ all fired up. His blood pressure is probably about 250 over 150.
See, this is unfair because I'm about to go coach, and I hate to say this out loud. I hope no one's listening in Kansas. One of the worst Kansas basketball teams in the history of the state. And my blood pressure didn't need to go up because it's going to go skyrocket in the next 30 minutes. So trying to yell at eighth grade boys. But thank you guys. Thanks for getting me all worked up, Chris. I appreciate it. Khalid, always good to hear you, man. Take care.
All right, be safe.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, so I got to bring Philip in from WA. Philip, how you doing?
Greetings and salutations.
You've got like an interesting filter there. You've compressed and you're already tall. Now you're taller. Can I borrow that effect myself?
Absolutely. I want to find a good studio that I can sit down and make it all professional, but right now we wing it.
I hear you. So check this out. And I got to get you up on a couple other stages here, Philip. So let me get Philip up here and let me get Philip up here as well, plus Khalid. This is some breaking news. Iranian Ayatollah Khamenei's body found. He's dead, Israeli official says, after U.S.-Israeli strikes led by President Trump. I'm seeing some comments as well that they've actually released some pictures as well. Any comments on that? Just to go straight to you, Philip, to give you a chance to speak. Do you believe it, number one? And number two, what do you think the consequences are if it is indeed true?
I like a lot of reactionary. I like to be proactive. I want to give your audience, and as we engage further, I want to give your audience a message of positivity. And one of those things where it could be really bad, but we play the what if game all the time in scenario training. I don't believe a whole lot of what I see on the media. It takes a while to play it out, and those that want to race to be first normally are wrong.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that this ends very quickly, and I agree with JJ and all the awesome guys that you have on this, that there is imminent things happening in this country, and I want everyone to be ready for it.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks you. Khalid, I got to give you a chance to comment on this. Do you think that they got him?
Again, Fox News in Israel saying that they got the Ayatollah isn't confirmation for me. I want to hear other sources, and it's wishful thinking, because when the attack started this morning, Israel had put out a list saying that we got so many people on the list of the command and control structure inside of Iran. And as the day passed forward, we found out the president of Iran was still alive. We found out the chief justice of Iran was still alive. And we started going, wait a minute, what was the point of making that statement that you'd gotten them? Because you didn't get them. Right now, again, Chris, the first 48 hours, people need to be very careful what they see on the media and what they agree with what's on the media, because everyone is going to be spinning their own narrative. While I would love to hear the Ayatollah is dead, I would love to hear that. He's already nominated his son to take over for him. So you have not changed the government yet. We need to see regime change, and regime change means the IRGC needs to go and the mullah government needs to go, and the people of Iran need to be empowered to take their country back. That's when this war is won.
Well, Khalid, think back to when we dropped the bunker busters on them all the crazy shit that came out in the first 48 hours. And you said the exact same thing you just said now. And we did a follow-up about 72 hours afterwards. And you rhymed one thing after another, after another, after another, that was complete hyperbole that was released during the heat of the moment.
Yep.
A little bit more on this, guys. Supposedly this imagery shows 3 separate holes that in the Ayatollah Khomeini's home. They're calling them, they were laid down by bunker busters. They're saying it was likely kicked off at a time to intend that he was home. But again, we don't have any proof, but this is disconcerting here. If it's true. And by the way, this is all stuff that I've pulled up since we went live. So I haven't had a chance to measure the veracity of any of this stuff. Global Powers Watching claims circulate the Chinese naval forces may be moving toward Gulf waters amid Hormuz tensions. Unconfirmed reports suggest PLA Navy vessels could be positioning near the Persian Gulf following threats to shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Let's get over to another stage here. I read earlier today that if the Strait of Hormuz is blocked, China is in deep, deep trouble getting fuel of all types, whether it be oil, LNG, whatever the case may be. If that's true, Philip, what do you reckon the response is going to be on China's part if they can't get any fuel to power their plants, 1.4 billion people, plus their war machine?
Path of least resistance. They're going to look at a lot of our allies in the region, and they're looking at South Korea. They're looking at a lot of places where there's a lot of roadblocks, and the U.S. is everywhere. So it's going to definitely increase a lot of tension in the area, no doubt.
Yeah, Khalid, what happens if the Chinese military comes into the region, water or land?
Well, there's a couple of problems here, Chris. The Chinese military does not want to end up in a direct confrontation with the U.S. That is a known fact. I mean, if that was if the Chinese military wanted a confrontation with the U.S., they would do it over Taiwan. The fact that they have not done it is because they were the ones that said, wait a minute, we cannot afford to go into this kind of a war, because that war will be more taxing on China and on the Chinese military than it will be on the U.S. to begin with, number one. Number two, people that are showing pictures of the Ayatollah's home being bombed, please let me clarify. The Ayatollah was not in his home when the bombing started. He had been moved to a safe location 4 days ago. So if you think that because they hit the Ayatollah's home, you've killed him, you are wrong. You are singing the same song that they sang when they invaded Iraq and said they will welcome us as liberators. They did not welcome you as liberators when you marched into Iraq. This is that same song that we sing in that 48 hours saying, we won, we won, we won, we won. We need to wait the 48 hours and wait for the proof to come out, because every news channel across the planet will sing this song that the Ayatollah is dead. Also keep in mind, like I said before, the Ayatollah has already nominated his son to take over in his place. So the Ayatollah being killed is not the end of the Mullah regime. We need that regime to be gone. We need the IRG to be decapitated. Otherwise, we come back to a much stronger Iran, a much more dangerous Iran, and a much more threatening Iran, that the red lines will have been crossed. They will have withstood Israel's attack twice. They will have withstood the American attack twice, and they will be going after you on every level they possibly can.
Yeah, so check this out. There's an explosion of information hitting X now. Iran International English, got a blue check mark, no idea who these people are. Iran's supreme leader Al Khamenei has been killed. Saturday's airstrikes. The whole feed is full of this right now. Iran's supreme leader was killed. Everybody's reporting he's been killed. I can't say. I don't have any sources to tell me yay or nay, but I'm with Khalid that if you jump the gun on this stuff too quickly in the first 48 hours, it usually doesn't turn out so good. I want to show you all this video quickly of United Arab Emirates rocket artillery system, 122 millimeter caliber, so approximately 5 inches. developed and manufactured in UAE, is considered one of the most powerful multi-launch rocket systems in its class. Fires 240 rockets in just 2 minutes with intense firepower. Well, that was 18 seconds. Khalid, you've been, I'm going to be careful what I say here because I don't want to disclose too much, but you've been very, very close to the kinetic stuff recently. Yeah. How does this compare to other countries' weapons in that class? And then, Philip, I'm going to move into segment number 3, which is about the domestic front here in the Homeland. So I'll be able to pull you into a bunch of that. But Khalid, your thoughts on that rocket system in the UAE just declaring war?
Well, the UAE has always had very strong engineering behind them because the amount of money the UAE generates and the fact that it's generated from 3 different states and from 3 different types of economies, they have a lot of money to invest into their kinetic operations. The problem that you have here is that when you start looking at what the Middle East has in terms of power, and if you look at Saudi Arabia, if you look at Kuwait, if you look at Qatar, if you look at the UAE, the problem is not the fact that they have this great weaponry. They don't have the people that know how to use it. I mean, if we look at Saudi Arabia, for example, Saudi Arabia, there is, I think, something around 300,000, 400,000 of Pakistan's military sitting in Saudi Arabia running the armed forces. Your generals are just there in uniform. They're not there to run the military. They're not there to run kinetic operations. The same thing exists in the UAE where you have generals, you have a military, but you're not capable enough to carry out a war. That's why you see so much of this being outsourced. This is why you don't see the Middle East countries attacking Middle East countries. If you look at the history of the Middle East, you've never seen a Middle Eastern country attack a Middle Eastern country, unless it was Saddam attacking Kuwait, or Saddam attacking Iran, or Saddam attacking somebody else. You have not seen that happen. It's great that you have the weaponry, and the U.S. has sold billions of dollars to the UAE and to Saudi Arabia, but do you know how to use it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, based on that, didn't we just discuss how Pakistan destroyed a bunch of American military gear that the Biden installation left behind because the Afghanis didn't know how to operate it and they put it all in one spot?
Yep. Camp Phoenix, which was just outside Kabul, 80% of the U.S. weaponry that they had was all stored there, and we blew it up in the first round of bombing of Afghanistan in just 2 days ago. So if you think about, what you're dealing with on the other side, you kind of go, you're dealing with people who don't know how to deal with even the simple slingshot, much less an actual weapon.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely crazy. All right, so let's jump into segment number 3 here, the home front threat. So before today's strikes, Iran explicitly threatened to activate sleeper cells inside the United States if attacked. As we mentioned, that warning was passed directly to Trump via an intermediary, and we've passed that point. The trigger condition that Iran set has now been met. FBI Director Kash Patel, what do you call him again, Khalid? Youth-size windbreaker? Is that what you call him?
Youth-size windbreaker.
There you go. Okay. FBI Director.
Youth-size windbreaker. Did you see the statement made? Just to cut you off for a second, Chris. Did you see Trump's statement against youth-size windbreaker the other day about how he was partying with the U.S. hockey team after they won the gold?
Yes.
$75,000 in U.S. taxpayer money was spent on him to go and party with the U.S. Hockey team after they won the gold.
Wow, it's crazy. So Kash Patel had already elevated domestic surveillance of Hezbollah cells as of February 18th, so about 10 days ago. Trump's own national security memo confirmed Iran directed Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad to embed sleeper cells in the U.S. for activation. Convicted Hezbollah operative El-Qurani, as I mentioned earlier, from Unit 910, which is not one unit. It's a global grouping of Hezbollah, sometimes referred to as the Black Ops arm as well. told the FBI in federal court his cell would activate in the event the United States and Iran went to war. We're now in that scenario. This is a federal court record, not speculation. Known Hezbollah surveillance targets inside the U.S. include Times Square, the Statue of Liberty, Rockefeller Center, Empire State Building, major airports, tunnels, and bridges. A Hezbollah operative in Texas purchased 300 pounds of ammonium nitrate before arrest. Keep in mind that, yeah, it's dangerous, but Timothy McVeigh used 5,000 pounds when he hit the Alfred P. Murrah building in Oklahoma. The LAPD has already stepped up patrols near houses of worship and community spaces. Obviously, that's a tell. And critical unknown right now is if IRGC command is being decapitated in Tehran. If so, who controls the cells? And do they go decentralized and lone wolf? So, again, I want to come to you first, Philip. I appreciate your patience there. Thousands of Iranian nationals crossed the southern border illegally during the Biden installation. How significant is that exposure to the current domestic threat picture? And what's your general advice for Americans, just based on the fact that, as J.J. Carroll just said, it's not 18,000, it's not 100,000, it's way over 200,000 minimum known terrorists in the country?
No, absolutely. I mean, first off, Khalid, fantastic insight, fantastic guest you have, Chris. And everyone's goal is basically, as a civilian, is to learn quickly how to think and react faster under stress. It's been growing. The pressure's been growing. Everyone that can ignore it, it's something is here. And, the goal for everyone is first to survive, get safe, stay informed, and then ultimately, immediate, imminent, let professionals handle the threat.
Oh, sorry, you cut out there just a little bit at the end.
Oh, sorry. Just the overall goal is that there is a lot of, how you see a black hole is you can't see the black hole, but you see how it affects everything around you. And that's kind of where I feel like our society is right now, where there's just things that are in play and you see a little bit here and a little bit there, but it's something that we all kind of know instinctively, collectively, that there is pressure building. And things like this are where everyone needs to be on high alert. And I'm excited to give people more of a positive act on things they can do, because the news can be very overwhelming. If you don't have any training, it can be very overwhelming, especially for a spouse or for your kids or parents that have their kids that are off at school. And things like this, we've been talking about this for years. Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, Chris, a lot of people that they talk about, when Russia pulled out of Afghanistan way in the back, the terror basically followed them home. And there are a lot of terrorist attacks in Russia, and there's all types of things that they've been studying over the years. And for us, we've just been very lucky there hasn't been more.
Yeah, that's probably a good time to mention something. So 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, Mike Sterling, who may join us before we end this broadcast, and we did a special episode on this, Philip, where we were discussing the intelligence that sleeper cells, especially Al-Qaeda, because they love the air, had drawn up blueprints to hit large stadiums with multiple drones, because the drone software that's open source at the time, one operator, 5,000 drones. That same software, latest version, one operator, 15,000 drones. And of course, you wouldn't need anywhere near that. But Mike and I covered the intel that basically indicated that they would potentially bring aerosolized fentanyl into football stadiums. And by the way, go look up the numbers. I think the most recent numbers are 2023 that the NFL's released, but 2,500 to 3,000 drone incursions on NFL stadiums every single year for about the past 5 years. So anyway, we did this, Philip, and spoke of the danger and how you should go to nextdistro.org and get the free Narcan. Of course, the free Narcan doesn't help you too much these days, because 80% of the fentanyl seized last year was laced with xylazine, which is a horse tranquilizer, and Narcan won't touch xylazine. So if you ingest it, you're DRT. There's nothing saving you. Anyway, where that intelligence came from, it's interesting that you mentioned it, Philip, was Russia. So in 2002, there was a hostage situation downtown Moscow at a theater where Chechen terrorists had almost 1,000 Russians as hostages. And when the FSB decided they wanted to end it, so the Russian equivalent of FBI, they pumped the HVAC ductwork full of aerosolized fentanyl. And there's 1,400 analogs of fentanyl. We have signatures on about 200 of them. They used car fentanyl. Car fentanyl is 50 times more powerful than the base analog of fentanyl is. They killed hundreds of people. They told nobody. I mean, the paramedics could have rescued people with Narcan. Anyway, we're now at the point where the concept of using drones to deliver aerosolized anthrax, aerosolized fentanyl, even aerosolized sarin nerve gas inside buildings where it doesn't disperse like it does outside at the same level. It's a huge threat. But the funny thing is, you drew a perfect connection for me there, Phil. It comes back to the terrorism that started in Russia and the lessons learned from that. And their intentions are to inflict that on us here. So, Khalid, coming back to you, I want to ask you a similar question to what I asked JJ last time around. If the IRGC command and control is degraded or killed in these strikes, do the sleeper cells become more dangerous because they go decentralized and harder to track? I meant to get your input previously, but I want to hear what your thoughts are now, Khalid.
Well, the IRGC commanders and the IRGC sleeper cells in the US are already trained in a decentralized format. They are trained on the mentality that their entire command and control structure disappears. When you have that level of training, that means that you are operating from a decision-making perspective of your own. When do I move? How do I move? How do I hit? What they've been given is a guide. And that's the easiest way I can explain it to the audience that is not from the military world. You basically have a guide. If this happens, these are the targets. If this happens, these are the targets. If this happens, these are the targets. That is what the IRGC has trained all of their commanders on the ground in sleeper cells in the United States, in Canada right now, to what they do if something happens inside of Iran. That is what you call a fallback pattern. That if the entire structure disappears, that is there to support you, you still have your go order, you still have your kill order, and your kill order depends on the level of violence or the level of destruction that happens back home in Iran for them. If the entire IRGC is wiped out in Iran, these are your targets. If only half of it is wiped out, these are your targets. If only a third of it is wiped out, these are your targets. And it structures down from there. One thing that people need to understand is that the IRGC, Al-Qaeda, and the Islamic State, these are three very separate organizations running from the same type of a playbook. The reason I point that out is because when we look at Pakistan, we've said this over and over in episodes on Survival Dispatch, everything that you're going to see during the attacks in the United States has been carried out inside of Pakistan. We have seen it happen here. We know how they're going to do it. It's been tested on us here in Pakistan. That's how we know what they're going to do in another country. And how do I relate that? Look at what happened in Pakistan to the school in 2014, Army Public School in Peshawar, where 146 children were executed because their fathers served in the Pakistan Armed Forces. That same model was used inside of France on a school. That same model was used inside of Somalia, inside of a school. Everything that we see happen here, because we're right on the border with terrorist university, that's all done inside of our country. We see how it's carried out. We learn from it. We build our counterinsurgency, our counterterrorism plans based on that. And then we farm that out to other countries in the world and say, listen, this is what you need to look for. This is what you need to look for. This is what you need to look for. If you look at our threat assessment we put out for the 9/11 2.0 attacks, the level of detail that we gave you and the type of people you need to be looking for, the support structure you need to be looking at, that's based on what we've seen done here in Pakistan. So if they've done it here, they're going to do it there.
Yeah, fair enough. Well said. So I've got some additional breaking news I want to share. Fox News is reporting that the Ayatollah and 5 to 10 top Iranian leaders are dead, and that we carried out 900 strikes within 12 hours, 51 seconds. Let's have a listen to this.
assessment and that the U.S. concurs that Khamenei is dead. And what comes next after this? We talked about the idea that there may be a long line of successors of clerics who are just lined up ready to go after this. But there comes a point as well that if you look and you see that the top leadership has been decapitated, then the rank and file of the levels below say, you know what, this is not worth it. And you have the overwhelming momentum of the Iranian population that has bristled against the repressive tactics of this regime, and they want something different. And they maybe all get together, and then you reach critical mass, and there's an overthrow, as there was in Iran back in 1979. That said, I remember in Iraq, well, the problem is Saddam Hussein. If we get rid of Saddam Hussein, everything will be great. And as we saw, it went to hell in a handbag. So what do you see as the possible?
All right. So I've got another update I want to share as well. That's pretty important. Bidirectional Strait of Hormuz traffic is still in motion. And that was as of 1607 Greenwich Mean Time, which would be about 5 hours ago. So could have definitely changed since then. So I don't think I'll waste our time playing that video. Philip, I'm going to come to you with another question though. So the LAPD, as I mentioned, they're stepping up patrols near houses of worship. What should Americans in major cities be doing differently right now than they normally do? Or what should their, let's say their SOP of being in public, what should it look like today compared to yesterday?
JJ brought up a good thing in the last segment about how there's 650,000 or roughly police officers in the country to police 350 million plus all the undocumented that, you know, and people are saying like on this show, it could be as much as 50 to 90 million on top of that. So the most effective things civilians can do is really stay focused on awareness, avoidance, communication, and preparation. And preparation is more about really not being in the right place, being in the right place at the right time, not, you know, with the wrong people doing bad things. And highly densely populated areas are things that are just, I avoid them like the plague. There are a lot of things that, as far as practical responsible, a framework, I'd like to have your listeners think of three things. One is situational awareness. And that's more active, right? Not reactive. So when you go into a space, any place, always be thinking about what you're going to do. And that's what we really like to hard focus on with scenario training. And then somewhat antiquated because nowadays we talk about run, hide, fight, right? And that's the principle with like an active attack. And that's still integrated in schools. But we really have to start thinking about, and I want your listeners to really take this to heart, that the old way of training for just one bad person, you're already behind the curve, where now they're talking about there's going to be multiple attackers in one location. So multiple predators, if you will, and law enforcement and the way normal people train they're not prepared for that.
Well, I want to add, just since you brought the subject up, there've been a significant number of thefts from dry cleaners in the past 2 years around the country of police uniforms and paramedic uniforms. There have been multiple law enforcement vehicles and ambulances stolen. There have been graphic kits that have been stolen to convert another vehicle to make it look like it's law enforcement. We've had a record number of break-ins at National Guard armories across the country. And believe it or not, the top two items that have been stolen in recent times, uniforms and Humvees, armored Humvees to be exact. So Khalid brought to us plenty of intelligence that basically said, hey, on 10/7, when the people who had their wits about them and they looked up and they saw the paragliders coming in with AK-47s, those people who were paying attention ran back to the parking lot, got in their vehicles, tried to exfil, and were stopped by several Hamas soldiers dressed up as Israeli cops. And they were told, whoa, it's not safe to pass here, and slaughtered everybody in their cars. Additional Hamas guys came out the side. So just humor me here, Philip. Let's say that somebody is unfortunate enough to be on the X, but fortunate enough to survive. And normalcy bias kicks in, where the human mind wants things to revert back to normal as fast as possible. And they're sitting there and they see what they perceive to be cops or paramedics coming on the scene. And we know from Khalid's intelligence that the whole plan is to draw in those first responders and hit them with secondary and tertiary attacks, just like they did in Mumbai in 2008 by letting off VBIEDs, vehicle-borne IEDs and stuff. What is your advice to somebody, again, unfortunate enough to be on the X, but fortunate enough to survive and to fight through the normalcy bias? My advice has been run as far away as fast as you possibly can, because distance equals safety. But you're an expert in situational awareness reaction. I'm dying to hear what you got to say on this one.
So I really want everyone to focus, part of the 6 things that I really like, when you start from scratch and you're like, hey, where do we start with this? It starts with situational awareness, follow the run, hide, fight, which you just alluded to, but harden your personal readiness. So you're lawful and responsible, the home safety, and avoid counterproductive behavior, and then psychological readiness. And so of those 6 things, what you just mentioned, I would say avoid counterproductive behavior. So in a crisis, confusion increases risk, including friendly and friendly fire incidents. So, don't attempt to hunt or investigate suspected threats. Don't profile, right? Things where in the George Zimmerman situation, where don't follow people, and don't self-deploy into active police scenes. So it's one of those things where I really want everyone, especially your listeners, to take away that let the professionals handle it. And when I talk about immediate, imminent, right, that is something where it's right now everyone should be on high alert and understand the psychological readiness that most terror style events are short in duration. It's very chaotic and it's highly localized. So, the goal really is, again, to survive, get safe, stay informed, and let the professionals handle it. There's a lot of stuff with scenario training that we're going to start incorporating, and we do at WAFT, where we're doing multiple threats. And it's very chaotic. And people that go through the scenarios that we set up are like, wow, this is not fair. This isn't safe. That's really hard to do. And you're going, well, yeah, it is. It is very chaotic. And the bad people are going to get better. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. We always talk about that in scenario training. So we want to play the what if game. So the quick answer, Chris, and it's not so me, it's the Holy Spirit. I love helping people and talking about this. The quick answer is to play the what if game. What would you do? And that is what's going to help keep people safer. And I'd also like to talk about bug out bags in a little bit, because when you talk about being in a city or a highly densely populated area, I'm sure all of your listeners have one, but it's like I always like to go over the basics and we hard focus on the fundamentals.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. I appreciate that very much. So I've got a couple things just to share for updates. This is an interesting piece of information. Glad to hear it, though. After missile strikes on Iran and retaliatory strikes, U.S. Secret Service steps up to protection of Trump, Vance, and other members of Trump's cabinet. So that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that they're taking steps there. Khalid, I got to ask you about this one. And I don't follow Laura Loomer too closely. It seems like she gets the break on, breaking news and a lot of stuff. But in the Islamic calendar, today is the 11th day of the 9th month, 9/11. It's payback time for all you Islamic terrorists. President Trump carried out strikes on Iran on 9/11 during Ramadan. He's an absolute genius. I haven't read that at all, Khalid, but comments on that?
I'm a big fan of Laura Loomer's conspiracy theories. She's really good at making stuff up and then having to retract it later.
Right.
It is the month of Ramadan. It is the month of fasting in the Muslim world. It is the 11th day of Ramadan. Yes, that anyone can look at a calendar and figure that out. There is nothing to do with 9/11 when it comes to Ramadan. That's just absolute malarkey if I've ever seen it in my entire life. Ramadan is a holy month for every Muslim. This is when the entire month is spent fasting and praying for all of the sins that we've committed for the remainder of the year, past year and coming year, and asking forgiveness for the things that we've done wrong. So there is no cultural significance to the idea that it's the 11th month, the 11th day of the 9th month, because this happens every year. Every year there is a Ramadan. Every year there is an 11. It's got nothing to do with 9/11 at all. Laura Loomer is very good at coming up with all kinds of things to get people fired. But 90% of the time she's talking out of one end and actually not actually coming up with any kind of logic. This is another one of those.
I knew you'd have the lowdown on that. Appreciate that. A couple more updates here quickly. So Beard Vet says a serious heads up, FBI now on high alert for potential Homeland threats tied to current Iran-U.S. conflict. Director Kash Patel says teams are mobilized, monitoring everything. Report any suspicious activity immediately. 1-800-CALL-FBI. Just wanted to get that number out there. So 1-800-CALL-FBI. If you see something, say something. And maybe it makes more sense to call that number than 911 if there's not some sort of pressing emergency. I'm seeing a lot of posts right now, by the way, you guys. Iranians celebrating in the streets following news of Khamenei's death. 18 seconds.
It's not on screen, Chris.
Oh, you know what? I forgot to take us back to that studio. Thank you. Let's see here. Let me start this one over again. Apologies. Thank you, Khalid. So at this point in time, I'm going to take all of this with a grain of salt. In Tehran, people are cheering, celebrating amid reports of Khamenei's death. For those of you who don't follow my podcast, I come from big tech, Sun Microsystems and Oracle. I've been programming since a very young age. And one of my skills is dissecting content, determining whether or not it was generated by AI or not. When you go to things like AI or not, and you ask it, is this, AI or not? Most of the time it's just a skim of the surface. And I've seen plenty of stuff where it's come back and said, no, that's perfectly fine. But if you take a video that's 30 frames per second, that's 30 still images per second, and you start dissecting them one at a time, you'll find all kinds of tells that it's AI generated. Until I have the time to dissect this, normally we prepare a brief in advance. We have all day to confirm the veracity of everything that's in it, and I can tell you if it's AI or not. Today, I can't tell you whether or not this stuff is AI, so we're going to kind of sit on that a little bit. But I want to move into our next segment number 4, which is economic and infrastructure threat vectors. So the Strait of Hormuz handles 20 million barrels of oil per day, roughly 1/5 of all global oil and liquid natural gas supply. Iran has threatened to close it. They've never actually done it, but they can disrupt it significantly starting today. Analysts expect temporary slowdowns, rerouting, and spiking shipping insurance costs at minimum. Every American who drives, heats a home, or buys food is going to feel this. Get fuel today, not tomorrow, which that shit drives me absolutely nuts because we don't need their frickin' oil. But the oil companies are a bunch of greedy SOBs, and they use it as a reason to pick our pockets. Oil price volatility is elevated, moving right now as markets process what's happening. Iran has serious cyber warfare capability and has used it against U.S. infrastructure before. Power grids, water treatment facilities, financial networks, and communications infrastructure are all asymmetric attack vectors on the table. Treasury Secretary Bessent posted on X this morning, reaffirming maximum pressure and tracking all illegal Iranian funds. Supply chain disruption is already underway. 14,000 plus flights canceled, as I mentioned earlier. None of this is abstract. The economic shockwave from this conflict will hit American households within days. And some of that may be legit, but a lot of it will just be taking advantage of a situation. So I got to come to you first on this one, Khalid. How realistic is an Iranian move to close or seriously disrupt the Strait of Hormuz? And what does that mean for, fuel and food prices around the entire world, not just in America? Oops, wrong one. There you go, Khalid.
Well, if Iran was dumb enough to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, and they've said they're going to mine the entire strait so that ships can't get through, that would be like shooting themselves in the foot. Because they need the straits just as much as everyone else does. They need to get their oil out as well. And understanding that Iran needs to export oil to make money, it makes it very difficult for them to make that kind of a move. If Iran really wanted to do damage in terms of oil, they would hit Saudi Aramco. They would take out Saudi Aramco. They would take out the oil fields in Kuwait. They would hit the oil generating hubs in the Middle East to make sure those countries collapse as well as retaliation for fighting against them. Again, when you talk about the Persian mentality, they will, at the point they figure out that they cannot save themselves, they will try and destroy everyone around them. And the mentality we need to understand is that for them to shut down the Straits of Hormuz, it's like shooting themselves in the foot. That means they can't get oil out either. So how does the Iranian economy, which is already struggling, how do they continue to make money? That's not something you can do. So it's a threat they will put out there, but they will not follow through on it because it's not beneficial to the Iranian people. It's not beneficial to the Iranian regime in doing what they want to do. So it's a great threat, but it's a better threat to go and say, I'm going to go and bomb Saudi Aramco. It's a better threat to say, I'm going to go and bomb the oil fields in Kuwait, because that is going to deliver more damage to the countries that have stood against you than it will to the Iranian people themselves.
So there's an old adage that the guy who has nothing to lose is a scary guy. What happens when we cross that threshold, Khalid? Like if they get to the point where they figure they're completely dead in the water.
They go after everybody then. I mean, we're almost there. I mean, Iran's statements thus far have been, we've wiped out the red line. There is no longer a red line anymore. The fact that they are hitting Middle Eastern countries that have been kind of allied with them, but kind of not allied with them, is an indication that Iran understands that they are in serious trouble right now. If the rumors are true that Khomeini is dead, if these rumors are true, that means the IRGC will go above and beyond to take out everything around them. If we are not going to survive, then no one else is going to survive either. Yeah,
that's what I anticipated the answer would be. Let me share a really well-written post here by L.H. Gray. Not familiar with them, but I think I'll start following them. This is well-written. So pardon the French, the fucking sleeper cells are awake. Iran just got its teeth kicked in by U.S. and Israeli precision strikes, and the mullahs, cockroaches, didn't crawl back into their holes. They've been waiting in hours for decades. Sleeper cells, not some tinfoil fantasy, real embedded radical Islamic networks trained by IRGC, Hezbollah, and every other death cult franchise that hates your freedom more than they love their own miserable lives. They live quiet, blend in, collect intel, stockpile, and wait for the green light. That light just flashed red hot. FBI Director Kash Patel lit the national fuse. Heightened alert, monitoring teams rolling, eyes on every soft target from malls to military bases in your damn neighborhood. These bastards don't need visas or manifests anymore. They've been here, radicalized online or smuggled through the open southern sewer under the last regime. I wonder if that was supposed to say the open southern border, and autocorrect changed into sewer. Mosques turned command posts, college campuses turned recruitment pools, shipping containers turned weapons caches. They're not migrants. They're pre-positioned infantry for the caliphate's revenge tour. So what do? You stay frosty. You keep your head on a swivel. You lock eyes with every suspicious shadow and you report it without hesitation. Call 1-800-FBI or the local fusion center. By the way, Bruno over on Rumble says, call 1-800-do-your-job. So anyway, no mercy for hesitation, no tolerance for, but they seem nice. Nice doesn't blow up school buses or slit throats in the name of Allah. And for the love of every fallen brother who bled for this soil, you stay locked, cocked, and loaded, magazine full, round chambered, optic zeroed, spare ammo stage. This is not a drill. This is the moment the Constitution's insurance policy was written for. Except you anti-2A cowards. Yeah, you. The virtual signaling disarmament fetishists who've spent years trying to neuter the rest of us while hiding behind gated communities and armed security details you deny to working families. You clowns who scream assault weapon at a semi-auto rifle and common sense reform at the Second Amendment itself. Stay disarmed, stay helpless, stay loud on TikTok about how guns are scary while the wolves circle your door. Natural selection is coming for you with a smile and a Darwin Award engraved in Farsi. You choose to be prey. The rest of us choose to be the apex predators who built this country and will damn sure defend it. Eyes open, trigger finger ready. America doesn't kneel, and neither do we. That's a really, really well-written post. I want to get your insight a little bit here, Philip, because you have an entire workshop that covers the concept of interrupting somebody's OODA loop, and you discuss how animals do it as well, and how we are the only living beings on this planet who will ignore our gut instincts. And Tony Blauer loves to say that every single person who lived to survive sudden violence went on to say the same thing. It didn't feel right. Speak a little bit towards that, please, Philip.
So earlier we talked about, how things are going to affect how things affect us and how it rolls downhill. 9 meals from anarchy. So regardless of what happens with the price of oil, everything, like you said, we've got a couple days and things are going to start trickling down to us. So that is one of those things where those are scenarios. And it's one of those things where as things start to get tight, people will start to get more aggressive and people could get approached. And that's where safety and scenario training kicks in. And so I really want people to take away from this that it can be the news, the media can be overwhelming, but it's one of those things where keep your loved ones close and seek out some training, be proactive with that. And I'd like to talk a little bit, again, just some value to your guys about a bug out bag. It's something that built around one goal is to keep you alive, mobile, and functional for 72 hours without additional outside support. Some things you mentioned earlier, Chris, where it's like scenarios where you pull up and it's a bad setup and it's an ambush. Those are things where any one of your listeners, we can stage things like that in scenarios. Can you imagine setting that up with you and the missus, and you pull up to it's a police and it's a bad stop. And then where do you have your guns? What kind of firearms do you have? Where do you carry all those things? And then we can role play that. So it's something that, there's a lot of stuff that we cover and there's a lot of stuff in the media, but I really want everyone to talk about it's like a bug out bag is not about packing everything. It's about packing what actually solves problems in like a real world breakdown. So six categories for all your listeners to take away: water, which is the priority; medical, light and power; clothing and protection; food, but simple and efficient; and then tools to keep it practical. And I could deep dive into that, but I want to give it back to you.
Well, no, you can roll with it after I ask Khalid one question. So Khalid, we did an episode on get home bags, go bags a few years ago. And it was Mike Sterling, myself, and I can't remember who the third person was. And we all had our lists of things that we were suggesting to people. And I suggested that one of the things people need in their 72-hour bag is a couple spare sets of socks, because when you lose your feet, you're toast. And anybody who's, spent any time in any swampy areas like Florida here with soaking wet feet will tell you it doesn't take long for your feet to go away. So Khalid, you spend a lot of time in the mountains, extreme mountains of Pakistan and Afghanistan. Do you pack socks in your bags? And what are your thoughts on socks before I hand it back to Philip?
It's not just socks. We pack multiple pairs of shoes, depending on what kind of terrain we're moving in. We have different shoes that we change into, whether they be boots, whether they be tennis shoes, because when we're on flat ground, the flatter the sole, the easier to move. There's a lot of things that people don't take into account. When you are on the move, you need to be thinking more on how you keep moving than what you carry with you. socks, foot powder, creams, lotions, different pairs of shoes. Those are all important to have in your go bags, because without having those with you, at some point you're going to have a problem. And when you hit that problem, you're going to be stopped in place. And once you're stopped in place, you become a target.
The DRT. So first, Philip, I want to hear your comments on socks and footwear, and then go ahead and do a deep dive into stuff that people should have in their bags. And everybody, if you haven't been doing it up until now, from this point forward, make sure you have your get home bag every time you leave the house. It's all you, Philip.
Yeah, no, thank you. Absolutely. Socks and shoes. I mean, it's something that 95% of what you need should be pre-positioned, and the chances of you getting from A to B. So think about that. I know a lot of folks that, well, I'm going to buy something in Chile, or I'll just fly with my private jet out of the country if something bad happens. And you're going, you have air restrictions, like, I don't think people have really, really thought out whether it be a dirty bomb and they put a boat off the coast, and the EMP and a solar flare or whatever, and all of a sudden now you've got to walk. So Khalid brings up a really good point where it's like, you got to stay in motion because you become a target. Socks, again, everything, just anyone who's done a half marathon or anything of any distance understands how important that is. So diving back to just deep dive again, it never hurts to go over the fundamentals. Water, obviously the priority, right? The number one rule I would say is carry some, but filter more. So you can survive weeks without food, but only a few days without water. So collapsible water bottles, hydration, a bladder, water filters. There's a lot of really good out there. Water purification tablets, right? That's number one. Number two is medical. Build this around trauma first and comfort second. So if you're running scenario-based training like we do with environments like WAFT, we already know equipment, right? Equipment, without training, it's just weight. So I love that. I love that. Someone said a while ago, equipment is just weight. So the basics should include tourniquet, right? Know how to use it. Pressure bandage, but a lot of people think about a tourniquet, but they don't worry about chest seals, right? Those are really important because that's your torso. Gauzes, gloves, a lot of stuff Khalid mentioned, meds, pain relievers, allergy medication, right? Personal prescriptions, okay? So it goes to number three, light and power. So emergencies happen at night or in low visibility. High quality flashlights like our WAF flashlight, right? That's the whole purpose. A headlamp, where our flashlights can double as a headlamp if you have a baseball cap, because hands-free is huge. Extra batteries, rechargeable batteries, power banks, because we're not talking about solar flares or EMPs. That's a whole nother level. Right now, it's what's more likely to happen is nothing. And then the next thing would be, more of a terrorist attack. So that's why I'm talking about these. Extra batteries, power bank, charging cable for your phone, but then clothing and protection, right? So dress for mobility, what Khalid talked about, not comfort, weather appropriate layers. Thankfully, we live in Florida, Chris, right? But imagine this is happening up north. So it's a whole different animal. This is one of the reasons why I pre-positioned in Florida and lived in Florida, because we don't have as much of an extreme weather change. So if we lose power here, it's not a big deal. Or you lose power in Massachusetts or something, now you're having a whole nother discussion. So weather appropriate layers, right? Especially it's a lot harder if you live up north, but gloves, durable footwear, that's already broken in. That's something that Khalid referenced. Compact rain poncho, stay and dry. And then avoid cotton heavy packing, right? Like, so wet cotton dries, heat fast. Is quality, buy once, cry once kind of thing, have good stuff. And then two more. So we got food, simple and efficient. You're not camping, you're moving, like Khalid said. No cooking gear unless you're in some true wilderness where it really doesn't exist anymore, unless you're watching some Alaskan Instagram, video of guys that like to go out and camp for a couple days. Calorie dense bars, electrolyte mix, nuts and compact rations. So something that's small. And then tools, keep it practical, multi-tool, lighter, waterproof matches, a small roll of duct tape, 50 feet of paracord, whistles, paper mat, a map of the local area, permanent markers, and optional but smart is like a small notepad, emergency blanket, compact, hygiene kit. So these are things that I want all of your listeners to just, mentally check off and say, yeah, I have that. And then, some things that people really forget are documents, copies of your ID, insurance cards, important things. And just throw it in your bag, have your wallet, have a backup wallet with all that other stuff. And then a communication plan. Like we talk about this in scenario training, more of a simplistic, we don't deep dive depending on unless someone's in there for a private, but a communication plan. Who are you meeting? Your family's not with you, Chris, right? So rally points, right? Out of state contact person, and then weight discipline. Your bag, your bug out bag should ideally be under 25 pounds because as Khalid talks about, under 25 pounds, comfortable enough to move, but to move quickly. And then scenario-based thinking. Your bag should reflect your environment. So urban Miami or the densely populated areas, a different setup than maybe in rural Montana or in Lake County where we are. And then, there's a big difference between hurricane prep versus civil unrest versus a wildfire evacuation. So these are just things that, make a bag good. And that's something that, the overall summary is lightweight, organized, make sure you have some legal stuff. And the biggest mistake, right, is in building it, but never testing it. So that's something to where I would love like people, some of our partners where they have the bags, the ballistic bags, Chris, where they pull them over and they've got but they've never deployed them, in scenarios. So again, these are things where I wanted to give your listeners, and I appreciate you inviting me on because Khalid is absolutely the person that should be dominating 95% of this segment because of his expertise when it comes to the Middle East. But for me, my area, my value to your listeners is we are a place that whatever you think of, we can come in, we can stress test it, and we can go over the fundamentals. And so I understand a lot of people out there aren't as trained as they should be, or a lot of people in the household, one is highly trained, and then the rest of the family is not. We are the place where you bring that to vet them and then to learn collectively. So when I see things on the news, I don't get that worked up. I don't, because we know what we have. We're already pre-positioned. We already have a lot of training, and whatever it is, we'll deal with it.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. Appreciate it. I'll just throw out there the old Sun Tzu adage, and I'm paraphrasing it, but human beings do not rise to the challenge. They fall to their level of training. So, Philip, I appreciate you joining us. Khalid and I are going to dig a little bit more into the politics of this stuff, but thank you for all of the excellent information.
Appreciate it. God bless.
All right. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Philip.
Thanks, Khalid.
All right. So, Khalid, I want to move into the section on global reaction and political fallout. So, Netanyahu confirmed the joint operation, said it will last as long as needed. Israel declares state of emergency. Schools are closed there for the next few days. Macron in France warned of grave consequences for international peace and security. Surprise, surprise. Oman's mediating foreign minister expressed dismay and said active and serious negotiations had been undermined. Iran's exiled crown prince, how the hell do you pronounce this, Khalid? Rezapahli. All right, that name. Posted on X, urging Iran's military and police to abandon the regime and join the people. Iranian civilians inside Tehran, reached by phone before the blackout, expressed hope the regime would finally fall. We're seeing videos purportedly showing them celebrating, also in D.C., by the way. On the domestic political front, Democrats are already positioning for 2028. Gavin Newsom called the strikes an illegal, dangerous war. And Pete Buttplug said it's put Americans at risk and does nothing to help urgent problems here at home. Kentucky Governor Andy Bashar invoked the long-term costs of Iraq and Afghanistan, demanded a full explanation from Trump. Yes, because the rest of us give a shit what Andy Bashar has to say. And the Palestinian Authority condemned Iran's retaliatory strikes on Arab states. Let me just pull a few things up before I throw some questions your way, Khalid. Number one, my friend Patrick Byrne, I've had him on my podcast a number of times. For those who don't know him, former CEO of Overstock.com. His father was, oh golly, isn't that awful? What's the guy's name? Warren Buffett's first partner. Warren Buffett credits Patrick's father for making him his first billion. And then Patrick was also a Senate Intel Committee asset for many years. He's done some crazy things. Go to thisistreason.com to check out Patrick's stuff. But anyway, Patrick Byrne, just as a reminder, says they skinned him on camera and sent the torture video to Reagan. Fred Burton's thinking of Bill Buckley today, interrogated as a hostage by Iranian intelligence. Bill was the CIA station chief in Beirut who was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered. That's who these people are. Do you want to speak to that at all, Cleve? Because this is obviously beyond the pale, right? We were kids. I mean, 1979.
We were kids. Yeah, this was in the 80s, and this was when Hezbollah was just becoming a powerhouse under Qasem Soleimani's regime of the axis of resistance. There was a guy by the name of Imad Muhdini, code name Radwan. For almost 15 years, no intelligence agency in the world had a picture of what this guy looked like. He led the deadliest force within the Hezbollah group that was emerging at that point in time. It was Mughni who came up with the plan to bomb the Marine barracks in Beirut. It was his plan to kidnap Bill Buckley and to videotape the torture and to send it to the U.S. as a warning to not support Israel. That obviously backfired. Mossad and CIA carried out a joint operation and took him out in the streets of Damascus with the most incredible bomb I have ever seen in my entire life. That was placed inside the wheel of a SUV that was triggered to blow up only when he walked past it. So this is when you think about the type of people you are fighting against, you have to remember that these people have no problem slaughtering people just for the propaganda value. They have no problem killing their own just to make a point. They have no problem killing your own. And to be very honest, after Bill Buckley was executed in Beirut, the U.S. gave up human intelligence for almost 20 years in the Middle East, afraid of repeating the same incident being repeated again. So the mentality that you're dealing with is far beyond animal. These are people that the only way that you are going to be able to defeat them is by crossing the line of what humanity really means. And it's something, Chris, you and I have had these conversations offline. It's one of the mentalities that keeps our boys alive, is that we cross the line when it comes to fighting the Taliban. Whatever they can do, we do 10 times worse, so that they learn their lesson and never do it again. And what we're seeing right now, and what we need to see from U.S. Special Forces and from Israeli Special Forces that may be operating inside of Iran right now, is that you need to forget what humanity means and treat them the way that they believe that you deserve to be treated. Otherwise, you are not going to win this war.
Yeah, it's a great insight on that. I'm not going to bother playing this video. There's all kinds of them out there if y'all want to see them. But this person says, wow, it's crazy. Downtown DC right now as hundreds of Persians descend on the White House to celebrate the ouster of the Iranian Islamic regime. Next one up, I have not listened to this, so I don't know exactly what's covered here, but it's an interesting comment from Gunther Eagleman. Breaking, CNN just reported that the Trump administration had indicators that Iran was going to use missiles either preemptively or simultaneously, and that's why they had to do this strike. I don't know that we'll play the whole thing. We'll see how revealing this is.
Just moments ago, they said they weren't ready to comment on it just yet. That could also mean that President Trump himself may be.
And this is less than an hour ago, by the way.
Gearing up to comment on it. Obviously, the administration often defers to him when it comes to big announcements like this. But one thing that I have now learned from administration officials goes to the why now and why the immediacy of this. I am told by administration officials that U.S. intelligence had quote unquote indicators that Iran was going to use missiles either preemptively or simultaneously. And that's why they had to do this strike. Now, I'm also told that this information had been relayed to members of the Gang of Eight when they were called and briefed, or at least given a heads up. That's how some of them phrased it, about this attack on Iran. We are still trying to figure out exactly the why. Again, were the missiles going to be used? How are they going to be used? We don't have answers on that, but it does give us a little bit of insight into the why now, which is one of the questions we've been asking. And these officials have also said that essentially Trump attacked Iran because the negotiating talks, the talks between his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, as well as the Iranians, had devolved into games, tricks, and stall tactics. And I know Barack has been reporting this as well, that one of the things that we heard from White House officials in the last several days was that they were disappointed in where Iran was when they were coming to the table, that the two sides were nowhere near a deal. Now, of course, we did also hear from the foreign minister of Oman, who is actually, in these talks. He was the facilitator of these negotiations, who said that a peace deal was within reach. That was yesterday that he said that, but obviously the Trump administration, the president himself, didn't feel that way. Now, if the supreme leader is dead, I can tell you this. I have talked to a number of Republicans today since we learned about these strikes in the middle of the night.
I don't really give a shit about that stuff. It's all political theater, two different sides of the same coin. Clede, you want to comment on the fact that, with regards to Iran's plans? Does it sound believable or not? I mean, you're the intel expert. To me, it sounds like it could be believable. But what are your thoughts?
Iran was ready to strike. Iran was. There was no doubt in that. Iran had already signaled to everyone in the world, everyone in the Middle East as well, that if the U.S. were to strike, Iran's response would be immediate. And you and I talked about this the other day when we did the show, where we talked about what the IRGC's plans were in terms of sleeper cells inside the United States. And you asked me a question. I still remember the question. Do you think it will be days later that Iran responds, or will it be within hours? And I clearly remember I said it will be within hours. They will not take time to respond. And what we saw is at 10 a.m. Tehran time, the first missiles hit in Tehran, and by noon, the IRGC was already launching missiles at Middle Eastern countries and at U.S. bases in Middle Eastern countries. So, I mean, it was within hours they rolled forward. Iran was ready for this. Now, in terms of whether the talks were working or not, I was of the belief that Iran was playing the same game they have played from the very beginning. Delay, 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 delay. They were not going to take the nuclear program off the table. They were not going to take the ballistic missile program off the table. And those were two of Trump's red line requirements for Iran, that those two things had to disappear. Iran had made it very clear they were not going to do it. They were willing to say, okay, well, we'll take our enriched nuclear uranium and move that to another country for 7 years, and then we'll come back and revisit this conversation during that time. But that's not solving the problem that the Americans saw, that Iran would have nuclear weapons. The other thing, and it's a statement that Donald Trump made during one of his press briefings, and that the U.S. intelligence came back and said, we don't have any proof of this. Trump said that Iran was developing a missile that could hit the United States. U.S. intelligence came back and said, we have no proof of that. The farthest an Iranian missile can hit is, I think it's the middle of Italy is the farthest an Iranian missile can hit right now. To hit the United States, that's a 12,000-mile missile. I don't even know if the U.S. has a missile that you can fire 12,000 miles.
Well, I'm trying to remember what the name of them is, Clede, but the missiles that we have, and they're hypersonic by nature, that they leave the atmosphere completely. And then when they come back in, it's like the rods of God. Just the gravity feed is so strong that the speeds are absolutely insane. Whatever that class of weapons is called, Jeff MD has spoken to it many times, can travel that far and in the blink of an eye, basically, as well. I want to say that last time Jeff got on this topic, he said somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,000 to 10,000 miles per hour when they re-enter the atmosphere. So
Yeah, but I'm talking distance, Chris. I mean,
yeah,
from Tehran to New York, I'm sorry, from Tehran to New York City is somewhere in the neighborhood of 12,000 miles. 12,000 miles for an Iranian missile to fly is almost an impossibility.
yeah, I don't believe that they've had that type of capability, but the hypersonics that we have that leave the Earth's atmosphere and come back in can travel all the way around the world, basically, because they're programmed when they re-enter the atmosphere. So they're not subject to all the gravitational issues and the fuel that goes with it.
This was also why the Iranis had an interest in buying the Chinese hypersonic missiles.
Makes
Is
sense.
because those could leave the atmosphere and come in and hit anywhere they wanted them to hit. But that is still a deal that's in a discussion with the Chinese. They have not finalized that deal yet, so they don't have hypersonic missiles yet. There's a lot of hyperbole and rhetoric that was passed in the past week that kind of ramped up the need to push this. There was a reference to a policy paper that was written in 2009 where the US said that the policy shop said that if you want to wipe out the Persian regime, and they called it the Persian regime, they didn't call it the Iranian regime. If you want to wipe out the Persian regime, you have to let Israel strike first, and then the US come in behind them and strike afterwards, because it would build more support inside the United States for a strike inside the US. Again, this was a paper that was written back in 2009. We saw it happen again today when the Israelis took the first strike, and then the US came in behind and fired and took out targets behind them. But the US had already been signaling they were going to hit Iran. Trump had made it very clear that his red line had been crossed. Iran was not going to accept the US's terms. And the signaling was there. It was just a matter of time before we did. And you and I had talked about when, because we knew it was coming. We didn't know when it was going to happen.
So I just looked up a couple things here, Khalid, just for shits and grins. These boost glide systems don't have the 12,000 mile range. Again, this is not in my wheelhouse. It's too bad that Mike Sterling couldn't be with us, but just as he was getting ready to log on, his neighbor had a heart attack, and he lives out in the boonies, so he's clearly tending him as the priority. But here's what's really interesting, because I remember I told you Jeff said 9,000 miles per hour. So there's some speculation that they can do somewhere between Mach 10 and Mach 17, which would be 13,000 miles per hour. But the commonly accepted number is 6,000 to 9,000 miles per hour. I mean, just unbelievable speeds as they come back into the atmosphere. And the next part to it, it's too bad Jeff and Mike aren't with us, but both of them has specifically mentioned that those weapons are extremely hard to target to like a really fine small area. They're more like directionally accurate as opposed to pinpoint accurate sort of thing. Let's have a quick listen to this video here from Nick Sorter. Breaking: 40 top Iranian leaders killed during U.S. attack on Iran, per Fox News. By the way, DJ over here on Rumble, for those of you who are new to our podcast, I'm sure I've got 9 monitors surrounding me here, and I'm kind of keep an eye on everything. DJ said that Sky News, which if memory serves me right, that's Australia, is saying that the Iranian leaders are not dead. Lots of conflicting information. Like Khalid said, you got to wait 48 hours. But so take this with a grain of salt. We don't have any way to confirm the veracity. And apologies for the pit bull alarm going off, but somebody's approaching my front door. So they're doing what they're supposed to do. All right, let's have a listen to this. 1 minute, 18 seconds.
Fox News has learned from a senior Israeli security official. Israel assesses that more than 40 senior Iranian security and regime figures were killed in strikes during the opening operation that Israel launched this morning with the United States against the Iranian regime. This official goes on to say this is one of the largest regime decapitation operations conducted in modern warfare history, and that Israeli intelligence managed to infiltrate the Iranian security echelon, making the strikes possible, this official explained. But again, this news just coming into us, we were able to confirm it. that a senior Israeli official telling Fox News more than 40 senior Iranian security and regime figures were killed in the opening strike this morning. And John and Sandra, as you can hear on our phones here, and we're going to stay here. Our security is giving me the nod to stay here. Tel Aviv is under a significant attack right now. And again, this news breaking that Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, has been killed. We are now reporting exclusively that 40 senior regime figures were also killed in the strikes. The Iranians are going to try to target as much of Israel as possible, and that's exactly what is happening right now.
Yeah. So again, we don't have any confirmation on those numbers. And I'm not saying they're not correct. We just haven't had a chance to verify them. Do you want to make any comments on that video at all, Khalid?
Yeah, again, the only thing he was able to confirm is that an Israeli official had told him that they had killed 40 Iranian officials.
Right.
He was not able to confirm the 40 people that are dead. Again, if the Ayatollah was dead, I guarantee you, just like when Osama was killed in Pakistan, Barack Obama was in the East Room of the White House to make the announcement that we have taken out Osama bin Laden. Donald Trump has not made that announcement yet, that I am going in and I'm going live on television and announcing that we've taken out the Ayatollah yet. So I'm taking everything with a grain of salt right now, because a lot of people are going to be spreading whatever rumor fits, whatever narrative fits, whatever game they want to play. And for Israel right now, Israel has been under fire all day long. Ever since the strike started on Iran, Israel has been lit up with bombardments from Iran, and Hezbollah has kicked in. The Houthis have kicked in. Everyone is stepping up to say, okay, well, you know, we're going to do. But as of right now, 12, 14 hours after the bombing started in Iran, we still don't have any confirmation of who is dead other than one senior IRGC commander, Pakpur. He's the only one that we have confirmed is dead.
Okay, fair enough. So Nick Sorter again, breaking U.S. CENTCOM's just released a video of them carrying out Trump strikes against Iran from the sea and the air. As the president stated, our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime. President ordered bold action. CENTCOM forces are delivering an overwhelming and unrelenting blow. So I notice how this says unclassified. I'd love to see the stuff that said classified. Just saying. Not a good day to be in the IRGC.
I mean,
and that's starting over.
When you again, success in this model is determined on whether you actually collapse both the regimes, IRGC and Mullah. Both of them need to be defeated. Otherwise, Iran comes back 10 times stronger than what it was. And that is what people aren't realizing. This is not about killing one or two. This is about taking out two separate standing regimes, one military, one religious. If you don't take them out, Iran becomes much more dangerous than what it is today.
Yeah, it's interesting. So again, a lot of these videos I'm pulling up, I haven't had a chance to verify them, but from Gene Robinson, the American jet would not fall. Locked, tracked, targeted. An Iranian missile screaming through the sky, heat-seeking, hunting, closing distance. And then something happened. The American pilot did not panic, did not freeze, did not break discipline. He moved a hard roll, a violent vector shift, throttle discipline under pressure, flares time with precision, years of training, muscle memory under G-force, instinct forged in an American air superiority doctrine. The missile lost its solution. The sky flashed. The American jet climbed because American pilots are not amateurs. They are the product of the most advanced flight training pipeline on Earth. They're trained to survive, trained to dominate, trained to come home. Somewhere over that horizon, a hostile launched missile failed, and somewhere in that cockpit, a calm voice kept breathing, calculating, executing, that the aircraft did not get hit. American air power held. This is why air superiority matters. This is why training matters. This is why strength matters. The sky is not neutral territory, and today it belonged to the United States. Well, it's belonged to us since World War II, if not even before then. And the reason we were so, deadly against Japan, not including them being dug in the islands, was they ran out of pilots. So that's a big reason that the kamikaze program went forward, because the pilots were not very skilled. So they told them just crash your plane and, kill. Let's check this out. 29 seconds. Wow. That was pretty badass.
That's good flying.
Let me go ahead and stop. Yeah, that was pretty badass. And I mean, our equipment's just second to none. Our personnel are second to none.
The U.S. has one of the best pipelines for creating fighter pilots. The mentality that's ingrained into a U.S. fighter pilot is bar none one of the best in the world. And to think that an American pilot is going to panic under pressure is just being foolish. You'll get other countries that'll do that. U.S. pilots won't panic. That's just not something that'll happen.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. Khalid, let's move into the home stretch here. I want to hear your thoughts on your advice for Americans over the course of the next 72 hours and their safety here in the homeland.
Well, tomorrow being Sunday, please be very careful going to church. Your churches are a bastion target for the IRGC. It is, like we've said, it is both a psychological and a moral victory for them to hit one of your churches and create mass casualties at one. Shopping malls, thankfully, we are out of the shopping season right now when Christmas and all that was going on. So that problem is gone. But understand right now, the IRGC is looking to deliver a psychological blow. There was a test back in the old days. I don't know if they still do it now. It's called the Dover test.
Okay.
It's the test of whether the media, when they start seeing American caskets, American military caskets, showing up at Dover Air Base, how much that would break the resolve of the American people to continue a war anywhere. This is not caskets coming from abroad, but caskets arriving right there on U.S. soil. The impact of that is significantly higher than one coming from abroad, because that's coming back from a war. This is at home. When an attack happens at home, remember what happened during 9/11. I mean, the American people were shook. They were shook to the core because it happened on their soil.
Mm-hmm.
If the IRGC is able to do the same thing tomorrow, because tomorrow is Sunday, it is a religious holiday. Stadiums will be full. People will be out and about. The possibility of a sleeper cell attack is real and there. And one thing people have to keep in mind is, for this entire time that we've been talking about the threat to the United States, everyone has been calling us fearmongers. Now everyone else is writing about it and saying, oh my God, there are this many terrorists. The Iranian sleeper cells are active. This is happening. This is happening. And we're going, isn't that what we've been saying for how many months?
Yeah, long time for sure. So
people need to keep their head on a swivel. Keep your senses about you. Keep your hands free. Keep your eyes on your loved ones, because one kid moving out of your vision, your line of sight, will panic you, because right now you don't know what's going to happen in your country, and that is what they're counting on. One single second your child moves out of your line of sight and you go panic, and that's what they're counting on. That panic creates other opportunities. Number two, keep a very close eye on people that don't belong where they are. any new faces around you that you have not seen before, keep an eye on them, report them to security, report them to the police. Do not call the FBI. The FBI is very good at putting people on their radar and never do anything about them. And once they've carried out the attack, they go, "Oh yeah, well we knew that this was a problem, but we should have done
Right.
something." Remember, youth size windbreaker has for the past 8 months been saying that this is all clickbait. This is all clickbait. Today, you're the one echoing what we've been saying for the past 8 months.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah,
had you been acting 8 months ago, this threat would not be the way it is today.
Yeah. Good point. For every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction, right? Or perhaps asymmetric, at least in this case. So glad that you mentioned tomorrow, by the way. So our good friend Keith Graves, personal friend of mine over at Christian Warrior Training, put out a really good article today on church security. So number one, he's elevated church security threat level to orange, same as us when we sent out our SDN's alert this morning, Survival Dispatch Emergency Notification System. So I'm not going to read all of his content because that wouldn't be very cool, but executive summary: the United States has entered active combat operations against Iran. Iran is responding. This creates a retaliation window that elevates risk for symbolic and soft targets inside the United States. At this time, there's no confirmed intelligence indicating coordinated operational activity targeting churches domestically. However, historical patterns and ideological statements from extremist organizations require increased vigilance. So again, I'm glad that you mentioned that. Thanks, Khalid. Couple quick videos before we wrap this thing up for today. Just in, Iranians are doing the Trump YMCA dance now that Ayatollah Khomeini is being announced dead. Just like Venezuela, Trump has yet again proven he is a geopolitical masterclass. P through strength on display. 47 seconds. Haven't watched this, but let's check it out. That is too funny. Oh, he's got the volume turned up now. I mean, they don't really have it down pat, but kudos for them for doing the Trump dance.
Yeah, kudos for trying.
Yeah. Let's swing to the other side of the, the polar opposite here. Khalid, check this out. Breaking: Muslim protesters in Washington, D.C. are chanting Allah Akbar and marching with no war signs. They're very angry that the Ayatollah was killed. They're showing their true colors. 13 seconds. So I'm sick and tired of getting strikes and my attorney dealing with CommuTube and stuff. But otherwise, I'd be more than willing to comment on this video, but I'm gonna bite my tongue and reserve comment for the time being. Khalid, any other thoughts that you want to share with the audience before we move into the final closing stretch?
Well, look, you've got the Middle East in an uproar right now. You have Pakistan bombing Afghanistan. You have Iran being bombed by the U.S. and Israel. There are things that are going to cause cataclysmic shifts along the geopolitical spectrum over the next few days. Those things you need to be paying attention to, because these are all those little trigger events we kept talking about, little triggers that were going to trigger one thing, trigger another thing, trigger another thing, trigger another thing. We're seeing all those things come into place. And Chris, you and I have over the past 6 months on Survival Dispatch gone through this step by step, that watch for this, watch for this, watch for this. Everything that we have told you to watch out for, you should be looking very closely at right now, because people have disappeared. And those people that have disappeared are the people that you need to be the most fearful of, because they are the ones that are going to go green light, go. And when they say green light, go, all of a sudden your roads, your shopping malls, your hospitals, your schools all become a target. And my concern right now is, and I said this before we went on air, that Netanyahu made a statement that this is going to be a 4-day bombing campaign on Iran. That means you've drawn a red line for them, that 4 days is how long this bombing is going to go on for. Now, when you have told Iran that you're only going to bomb for 4 days, that's what you said last time as well, that, you know, it was only going to be a bombing strike of this length of time, and that turned into a 12-day war.
Hey, Khalid,
Iran,
there's some breaking news saying that the airport in Dubai has been hit. Let me just get this up here. Let me find it again. I got too many tabs open. Here we go, right here. Dubai airport struck in Iran's latest attack on UAE. This was 14 minutes ago, 9 seconds. So again, we're doing.
That's Dubai airport. That is Dubai airport.
Okay.
Yep.
So we don't know if it's AI or not. Normally I check all of that before we go live, but thoughts on that? I mean, that's a fairly serious target, which tells me if this would just happened 13, 14 minutes ago, that the Iranians are not down and out yet. Like everybody's celebrating like it's over. It doesn't seem to be over to me.
It's not over until everyone says it's over. Right now, Iran is saying, okay, you have come after us. Now we're coming after you. The problem you've got right now, even here in Pakistan, we have shut down Karachi International Airport. Flights to Karachi International Airport, which is the largest airport in Pakistan, have been shut down for the next 48 hours because of what's going on in Iran right now. That's something that's very clear, that we're worried here in Pakistan of the potential of Iran actually striking us as well, because of our allegiances and associations with the U.S. military. We cannot call this, game over yet, because it's not game over yet. The regime is still in power. The threat still exists. The fact that they've hit Dubai airport, that is a huge strike. Earlier today, I saw kamikaze drones hitting a major hotel in downtown Dubai. I got reports that Burj Al Khalifa, which is the biggest hotel in the world, was being emptied of people because they were afraid the hotel was going to be hit. I saw a video of a hotel in Bahrain being hit by a drone. The war is not over yet. It's just started. And you've done your side of the firing, but now your enemy is now targeting up. Now they're starting to hit their targets, which is why I said, tomorrow is Sunday. Everyone's going to be in church. Be very careful, because this is what they're looking for, to catch you off guard.
Yeah, like I said, I just get this weird feeling that people are celebrating a little bit too early, and that it may not be the most prudent thing to do. So pardon me. With that being said, I will be back tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern for my usual Sunday evening show, where I cover some of the craziest X bookmarks I've made over the course of the past week. Typically, we make fun of liberals on Sunday nights. It's good for a laugh. All the women who are overloaded on SSRIs and have the 1,000 milligram stare. By the way, there was a big study released yesterday, Khalid, that said that they have concrete evidence now that people who have been using SSRIs for long term become more and more violent as time goes on. And some of these videos of these, crazy white women attacking people, it's mind blowing. They're demonic, but they're possessed by, they've got the SSRI, demon inside of them, for lack of a better term. And of course, the whole team will be back on Monday evening with our regular broadcast for Survival Dispatch News. Right now, it's another episode in the Long Worst series, but it'll depend on how fluid this situation is with this conflict with Iran is concerned. Quick shout out, because I haven't really had a chance to do so in this episode. I'd appreciate if y'all support our sponsors, carnivalt.com. This bag, 6 ounces of freeze-dried beef with a 25-year shelf life, reconstitutes in about 10 minutes flat and creates 1.5 pounds of raw steak. Nobody else has cracked the code. Everybody else who freeze-dries meat cooks it, loads it up with sodium, little tiny pieces like chewing on shoe leather. This is raw. You can cook it however you want, flavor it however you want. There's no products out there like it. Here's the deal. You see the 3 subscriptions when you go to carnivalt.com, off-grid, bug out, SHTF. Doesn't matter which one of those you sign up for. If you send your receipt to support at survivaldispatch.com, I'll give you a free 1-year SDN Guardians membership. Don't want to forget about our friends at wasatchwagyu.com, best jerky in the world, bar none. You can go to shop, either click on jerky or subscriptions. Either way, it'll get you to the jerky, which is, this stuff is crack cocaine. It is literally crack cocaine. These ones that you see here, I make sandwiches out of them. My wife makes, charcuterie boards out of them. And we got something nobody else has on these, by the way. Discount code SD25. It's 25% off. Nobody else has that at all. Khalid, listen, I really appreciate you taking time out, considering you're in the middle of a war over there. And for those people who don't know, Khalid is in Pakistan. He's been on the front lines of the war with Afghanistan for quite some time, but especially during the recent activity. And he made special accommodations to join us today to share his thoughts. So tomorrow night, 7 p.m., cheaven.substack.com. So letter C, Heaven, as you can see from my name right there, cheaven.substack.com, 7 p.m. Then Monday again, we'll be back with the next episode in our Long War series. Whew. Between now and then, do me a favor, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. God bless our law enforcement. God bless our troops. God bless America.
God bless America.
Enjoy the closing video. It's very apropos for today's broadcast.